This is part 3 of my top 50 board games of all time, numbers 30 to 21. And I made this video series to celebrate the arrival of my baby, and to allow me to take some time off to be a first-time dad, and to raise funds for the next year of Actualol. I've been making videos for 8 years, and I've never once made sponsored content in that time. So you can trust that I actually like the games that I talk about on this channel, and I haven't just been paid to talk about them. I depend on my Patreon to pay the bills, which have crept up lately. If you can afford to, please pledge your support, and I promise to keep putting everything into the videos I make. And as a bonus, you'll get access to 5 extra top 100 videos only for patrons. And if you want to see the rest of this series, it's time to subscribe to the channel. Finally. You've been holding out on me for years. And number 30 is Ra. This is an auction game from my favorite designer, Rainer Knizia. And this one is a classic. It's set in ancient Egypt, and you're trying to collect all the things you need for a prosperous culture. You've got monuments and pharaohs and civilization tiles. It's quite a thin theme. Really, it's just a set collection game, and all of these score in different ways. But it's the way that the auctions work that makes this game interesting. On your turn, you can either take a tile from the bag, or you can take the Ra token starting an auction, which means you're now going to bid on all of the tiles that are available. Deciding when to start an auction is a huge part of this game. If only a few tiles have come out, but you really want them, maybe you start that auction now thinking that you could win it on the cheap. Whereas if you keep drawing tiles, it's going to get way more competitive because everyone else is going to want to win. Bidding is really simple. You each have 3 bidding tokens that you can use. So I could play this 6, and then the next player could beat me by playing their 8. I can't bid again. We all only play 1 bidding token. But when you play that token, you know what the other people have in front of them. You know what they can beat you with. So if I really wanted to win this auction, I should have played my 13 instead, but I'm saving that for an even better auction. The fact that these bidding tokens are fixed creates some really interesting situations, because you might end up calling Ra early because you know that they can beat you if they really want to. A lot of the time, an auction won't be called by a player, but by drawing a Ra tile from the bag, and that takes you closer to the end of the epoch. It brings this incredible tension to the game because you're worried that the round's going to end before you've used all your bidding tokens, so you're going to end up wasting your potential and not getting anything. It's always a brilliant moment when the epoch is about to end and people still have bidding tiles left, and they can't decide, do they keep drawing tiles to add, or do they just call the auction now because otherwise they'll end up with nothing? There are so many little touches in this game that combine to create such interesting decisions. There are disaster tiles that can come out, and if you win an auction with them, you're going to lose tiles that you already have. Then there are the minus points that you'll get for not having enough pharaohs or civilizations, which creates such desperation because you realize you're getting to the end of an epoch, it's about to score, and if you don't have those tiles, you're going to end up with like -7 points. The idea of an auction game can sometimes feel kind of boring, but with this game you get hope and desperation and heartbreak, and to me that is all the exciting elements of a great board game. That is Ra. And number 29 is Heat, Pedal to the Metal, and this is by far my favorite race game. It's not even close. What I love about it is that you're using cards to get around the track, and everyone starts the game with the exact same deck of cards. So it's how you use those cards and the luck that you get from that deck that's going to determine whether you win the race. The number of cards you play depends on what gear you're in. So if you're in 3rd gear, you're going to play 3 cards, so you're going to go a bit faster than if you're in 1st. And generally you want to go fast except around corners because they have speed limits. So here you need to be playing speed of 3. So your cards need to add up to 3. Anything above that and you're going to take heat into your engine, which is bad. Heat is a double-edged sword because it allows you to take risks and do things you wouldn't normally able to, push your car beyond its limits. But when you take that heat into your engine, it's going to get shuffled up into your deck and end up in your hand, clogging it up with cards that you're not allowed to play. So you can go through this 3-speed corner at 6 and take 3 heat, but that's really going to come back to haunt you later. You can also take a heat to do a boost, which allows you to flip another movement card that round, letting you move even faster. It's such a great mechanism because the game is constantly enticing you to take heat. Of course you want to keep up with the pack, and everyone else is taking heat, so you should as well. It's peer pressure. But if you take too much, you're going to end up at the end of the race on that home straight with not enough cards in your hand to be able to be in 4th gear and speed to the finish. I love how important what everyone else does is to your success, because you really want to slipstream. If you're behind or adjacent to another car, you get to move forward 2 spaces for free. That's massive. You can play some low cards, be in a low gear, but still get to keep up with the pack if you get that 2 extra movement. The game gives you a way to get heat out of your deck, but that means slowing down to 2nd or 1st gear. So it's all about timing that when you're on those corners that need you to slow down anyway. There's a really nice balance between watching what's happening in the race, trying to keep up with the other players, but also focusing on your own car, on your deck, knowing that if you don't get that right, you're not going to be able to keep up. It plays great from 3 to 6 players because with 3, you can just introduce an AI which takes care of all the other cars, making sure that you still have those fun interactions on the track. I love the advanced modules where you're introducing extra cards into your deck, meaning that everyone's car is working slightly differently. I only wish that I had more time to play it so I could get into the tournament mode. Heat has really filled a gap in my collection. I never had a race game that I love, and now I do. That's Heat, pedal to the metal. And number 28 is Sheriff of Nottingham. This is a bluffing and negotiation game where you play as market traders trying to smuggle goods into Nottingham. You each have a pouch that you put cards into, and they can either be legal goods like chickens and bread and cheese, or they can be contraband like mead and silk. So you put it into your pouch, and then you hand it to the player that's being the sheriff for this round, and you say, 2 chickens. So you can lie about what's in there, and the sheriff has to decide when they take your pouch whether to let it pass through or open it and test you. If they open it and you weren't lying, there's 2 chickens in there, then they have to pay you money as compensation for not trusting you. Whereas if you were lying, there happens to be a mead in there, some contraband, then you're going to have to pay them a fine. So on the face of it, it's a pure bluffing game. You are giving something to someone and telling them it's one thing, and they have to decide if you're lying or not. But it's great that you can be legal. You can put in something that's perfectly fine, tell the truth, and then throw them the other way, that they try to catch you out, and actually you get rewarded because you were telling the truth. The reason that you want these goods is because you're taking them into your market and you're trying to have more of chickens and bread and cheese than the other players at the end of the game. The reason that you want to get the illegal contraband cards through is because they're worth more money. Where the game gets more interesting is that you can negotiate with the sheriff. You can offer them some money so that they don't open your bag. You could offer them some money so that they don't open your bag as a bluff, knowing that they're going to now want to open it and catch you out, but really it was legal goods all along, and now they're giving you money. You could offer them money to open someone else's bag because you're convinced that Dave is definitely trying to bring contraband through this round. I do wish that it had a different theme. Originally, this game was about smuggling illegal goods across a border, and that just fits the gameplay, but also the style of game so much better than this, which just feels a bit too childlike and family friendly. But the gameplay is amazing. That's Sheriff of Nottingham. And number 27 is Sniper Elite, the board game. This is my favorite hidden movement game. One player is playing as the sniper, trying to hide on this board by moving on a secret map that they're tracking with a whiteboard pen. And the others are playing cooperatively as the hunters, trying to catch him and kill him. That premise is what makes me love hidden movement games. It's really exciting being the sniper, moving around in secret, trying not to be detected. Every time that they walk slightly near you, you think it's game over, but you get away with it. And as the hunters discussing where they could be, using the tiny bits of information you get to work out their whereabouts, and moving in unison to try and corner them. That's what makes a hidden movement game great, but Sniper Elite manages to do it in a simpler, punchier way than any other hidden movement game I've played. The sniper has 2 objectives that they're trying to complete before the end of the game. They have to get to 2 secret locations on the board, activate their objective, and then keep moving. Once they've done both, they win the game. So they can only have a maximum of 20 moves before the game is over, which is so much quicker than any other hidden movement game I've played. The hunters have to find the sniper twice and attack him to win the game. And both sides have abilities they can use which add interesting decisions to the game. The sniper can choose to walk slowly, remaining undetected, or run, but then they have to alert any hunters that they ran adjacent to. They have special items they can use, such as a rock, to distract the hunter's attention. And they can shoot the hunters. They are a sniper after all. Using this bag, they draw tokens out, hoping to get enough hits to kill the hunter. But it's all about how far away from them they are. So they can go for a really long-range sniper, but then they're going to be drawing more tokens out the bag, and that's more likely that they're going to create noise and show their whereabouts. By killing one of the hunters, they're going to get them out of the way so they can get to their objectives easier, but they're also going to give the hunters a great idea of where they are because they're within sniping range. Whereas the hunters can sweep nearby locations to see whether the sniper's there, and they each have special abilities that they can use twice during a game. It all comes together to deliver a tense, exciting, dramatic hidden movement game, and somehow manages to be simpler to understand and quicker than any other in this genre. That's Sniper Elite. And number 26 is Deception Murder in Hong Kong. And this is a hidden traitor or social deduction game where one player plays as the murderer and they are trying to stay hidden and not get caught amongst everyone else who are the investigators who are trying to catch them and solve the murder. The interesting twist about this game is that you have a forensic scientist who knows who the murderer is and what murder weapon they used, but they can't talk. They have to communicate to the other players in the game the information that they know to try and help them guess who the murderer is and what weapon they used. To start the game, everyone will close their eyes and the murderer will open their eyes and point to a murder weapon that they used and a piece of key evidence at the crime scene. So they might pick a steel tube as the murder weapon and a safety pin as the key piece of evidence. And it's that answer that the other players need to get right before the end of the game to win the game. So it's not just about knowing who's lying to you, but knowing which of the items is relevant to the case. The way the forensic scientist communicates that information is by selecting options on these tiles. So here you've got the cause of death, and they could pick suffocation, severe injury, loss of blood, illness/disease, poisoning, or accident. So if it was a steel tube, we'd go severe injury. It's not perfect, but it's going to get them closer than other things. If they were to pick poisoning or disease, then you might think it was the sewer rat. Then you've got the location of the crime. So you've got pub, bookstore, restaurant, hotel, hospital, or building site. So they pick building site. Whenever they make a selection, the other players are going to discuss the new information that they know. Look at all the cards in front of every player because there's 8 cards in front of every player, and think where it's leading them to. Whereas in other hidden traitor games, you're just kind of going off a vibe of whether you think someone's lying to you. In this, there really is deduction. You're looking at all the cards out on the table and deciding which you think fits the evidence that you've been given. And the murderer and their accomplice is trying to shift focus away from them. So players might see the steel tube and think that's relevant, but they're going to be pointing at other cards around the circle and trying to convince the other players that they're the murderer instead. It's just so much fun arguing with each other about what you think the forensic scientist means. And it's really great when certain card pairings collide with each other. So it could be multiple players around the table, and then you're all desperately trying to convince each other that you're not the murderer. It works like a classic hidden traitor game, but it just gives you that bit more to talk about, which I find makes it slightly easier to be the traitor because you've got a bit more to hide behind. You've got reasons to say stuff rather than just constantly protesting your innocence. It gives you what you want from a hidden traitor game. Loads of conversation, loads of people protesting their innocence. It's not the highest hidden traitor game on my list. There's one I like slightly more. With this, you can have a luck of the draw in terms of the cards and the tiles that can swing it to one side or the other. This is still a brilliant game. I love how it differs from every other game in the genre. And it works pretty well with lower player counts as well. That's Deception Murder in Hong Kong. And number 25 is Burgle Brothers. And this is a cooperative game about carrying out a bank heist. And that's one of the things I love about this game is how it captures its theme so well. You each have a character that you send into the ground floor of the bank. And the game starts with all the tiles face down. You don't know what any of the rooms are. So it has this incredible exploration feel to it as you encounter rooms, sensors, alarms, all these things that are going to cause you pitfalls as you try and heist this bank. What you're trying to do is find the safe on every floor, get to it, crack it, and then escape via the helipad on the roof of the box of the game. While you're doing that, you've got guards that are trying to catch you, and they will move at the end of the turn following their pathway. So you can predict their movements, you know where they're going to go, but sometimes that won't even help you get out of their way. And the rooms themselves are causing you major problems. You've got alarms that are set off by laser, motion detector, and thermosensors that if you don't interact with them in the right way, the guards are going to end up coming to that location. And if you're still there, they're going to catch you. If you get caught, you're going to lose one of your stealth tokens, which are basically work like lives. And if you lose all of them, that's game over for everyone involved. So you're moving around really carefully. And the way the tiles interact with each other creates a really interesting puzzle. You've got service ducts that allow you to jump from one space to another, staircases that will get you up to the second and third floors. And you can choose to take it slowly, look ahead at where you're going before you walk onto a tile, so you know whether you're about to encounter a trap. But that's going to take up precious time, so you can just run onto a tile and deal with the consequences. But you could end up falling from one floor to another, putting you in loads of trouble. Everything that happens to you in the game has a thematic purpose and tells a different story every time you play. You've got special items such as roller skates, which will allow you to move quicker. Even the loot that you get out of the safe has an interesting story to tell. Here you found someone's prized chihuahua, which is going to potentially set off alarms every turn. Every character comes with its own personality and special ability that's going to help the team in their own special way. The rigger comes with a dynamite tool that allows you to blow up one of the walls on the map, allowing your team to move around easier. It really holds up as a great cooperative puzzle like Pandemic, where there's multiple paths you can take. So it gives your team so many things to discuss, whether you use someone's abilities or special items, which path you take through the floors, when you're going to activate the guards, use the alarms to pull them away from another character to save them from losing their life point. It's full of interesting decisions. It's a really taxing cooperative game, and yet somehow everything you do manages to be true to its theme, and with a low level of complexity. That is the sweet spot that every cooperative game should be trying to achieve, and so few do. Burgle Brothers is a real gem. And number 24 is Shifty Eyed Spies. And this is a party game where you have to try and wink at each other in secret whilst trying to watch other people and see when they're winking at other players. This comes from a time when I was really getting into quirky party games. And a lot of them have since left my collection. And this is the one that has really stuck around because of how much fun I have playing this game. I used to really love a party game called Wink, which I believe Shifty Eyed Spies is inspired by, but they just took it and made it that bit better of a game. So now it's completely replaced Wink in my collection. But if you can only get Wink, it's still a brilliant game. The idea is that you're all spies and you're given missions to communicate with other spies around the table. So I've been given this card, which means that I have to wink at the orange player. And when I wink at them, they're going to shift their eyes towards one of the locations for us to meet at. So they've got a location card. This one is the metro station. So if I wink at them, they're going to shift their eyes over to where the metro station is on the table. Then when it comes back round to my turn, I'm going to declare to the table that I met the orange spy at the metro station. And if I was right, we both reveal our cards and we both get a point. But you have to do it covertly, because if anyone spots you winking at someone or shifting your eyes at someone, then they can accuse you, and if they're right, they can steal your points from you. It creates this incredible atmosphere where everyone's desperately trying to watch everyone at all times. If you're playing like a 6-player game, there's a lot of faces to be constantly looking at, and then occasionally you're just going to do a little wink when you think no one else is looking. But what happens when you wink covertly is that that player might not even spot that they've been winked at. So then you can go a whole round and just have to wink again, find another opportunity. Everyone is completely silent, and then occasionally you'll just like burst out with laughter because the tension gets too much. I've played a lot of quirky party games that use different aspects of communication and blindfold and senses, and really this is the one that stands out as the best. It's not just that it's different from everything else, it's just really, really fun. And I've introduced it to newbies, non-gamers that absolutely love it, but it's also really great for gamers. At the end of an evening at a convention, you're tired, you might be a bit drunk, and you're just having an absolute blast with this game. It's super simple. It gets straight to the point, and it's so different to anything else you're going to play. I've never had a bad game of this. This is in my top 5 party games of all time at this point. That is Shifty Eyed Spies. And number 23 is Cascadia. This is a tile laying game where you're building your own landscape of the Pacific Northwest. You're taking habitat tiles and then you're populating them with animals such as hawks and bears and elk and salmon. You're trying to arrange your animals in a way that's going to score you the most points. So you want big long runs of salmon here, but you only want pairs of bears. If you have any more than 2 next to each other, that's not going to score. These scoring conditions change every time you play the game, so there's always a different dynamic. On your turn, you have to pick one of these 4 pairs. You always get a habitat tile and an animal, and they're fixed in these pairs. So I might really want this tile to expand my bear section, but I have to take this fox as well, and maybe I don't have anywhere good to put it at the moment. Each tile allows you to place a certain type of animal or multiple types on that tile. So when you're placing a tile down, you're creating a plan for the future. You know that you can put an elk here later, and that's going to help you with your elk strategy. Everything combined creates a puzzle that I just find really satisfying. This is my favorite personal puzzle game. And I like that it's not too constrictive. You can expand out in any direction. So if one strategy is not paying off because you can't get the animals you need, you can just worry about expanding in another direction and follow that path instead. I've played personal puzzle games that can get so frustrating because you run out of options with what to do, and it creates all this analysis paralysis. You're really trying to find a way to come up with a solution, but sometimes the luck of the draw just means there isn't one. In Cascadia, there's always something else you can do, and so even if it's not as good, it still just feels like a way out to keep the game going, because if you're getting locked up in your head and just getting frustrated, not only are you not having fun, but you're holding up the game for everyone else. And even though it's not the most interactive game, I still find it to be a really pleasant social experience where you're all getting frustrated about the fact that you haven't seen a salmon tile in ages, or when 3 of the same type of animal come up and you can cull them and put them back in the bag and draw new ones. You're all waiting with bated breath to see if the thing that you want finally comes out. I love how simple the game is to set up, to teach, to play. It's just such a smooth experience with incredible artwork. It plays great from 2 to 4 players. It's just such a well-rounded game. That's Cascadia. And number 22 is Quinto. This is my favorite small box game of all time. A game that has been on every holiday I've been on for like the last 10 years. It's a roll and write game, one of the originals, inspired by Quicks, but it took that and did something even better with it. Every turn, you roll these 3 dice, you add together the numbers, and then you have to write that number on one of the matching colored rows. You can't ever have the same number in a column, so it's a little bit like Sudoku, that you're having to puzzle it out, and the rows have to run in numerical order, upwards. If you get to complete the row, then you're going to score points equal to the number at the end, something like 16. That's quite a lot of points, but only if you manage to complete the row. If you ever get a number that you can't write down and it's your turn, then you're going to be punished. You're going to lose 5 points. If that happens to you 4 times, you've lost 20 points and the game is over. At its heart, it's a push your luck game. You can leave gaps higher up the sheet for really high numbers, but if you never roll them, then you're never going to fill up your sheet. You're going to end up hitting numbers that you can't place and you're going to go bust and probably lose the game. So you have to balance how likely it is that you're going to roll an 18, the highest number that you can roll, versus just taking like a 13 when it comes up and scoring those solid points. That's not the only way the game is encouraging you to take risks. There are certain spaces that you'll score the points for that space if you manage to complete the column. So again, you want to put really high numbers in that space. But if you put a 10 here, that means that every other number above it is going to have to be higher than a 10, which is quite unlikely to come up. Sometimes you're going to want lower numbers to fill in the gaps. So you can roll 1 or 2 dice instead. But if I roll the red dice, I get a 2. It has to go on my red row. And if I don't have space for a 2, then I'm going to take a punishment. It's such a pure concentration of gambling and begging the dice to give you what you need. And you're both sort of in it together. You've made different choices, but generally, you're both hoping for those big numbers to come up to to fill in the spaces faster than the other player. That in itself is an incredible game, and I played it like that for years, not realizing that I was missing a crucial rule, which is that when you roll the dice, you get one opportunity to re-roll. So if you really hate the number, it's gonna send you bust. You can re-roll once, but then you have to stick with the other one. So you might roll a boring 7, and you've got a space for a 7, but you'd like an 18. So you push again, but then you end up with a 10. 10s are really common, and you've got no space for a 10, and then you do go bust because you were gambling too hard. I know it doesn't look like much, and it's incredibly hard to describe why a game that's just writing numbers on a bit of paper is so good. But this is by far my favorite travel game, my favorite roll and write game. I'm going to be playing this one for years. That is Quinto. And number 21 is Merchants and Marauders, and this is the definitive epic pirate game. We're talking long and complicated with a million pieces, loads of cards, and so much going on, but I just absolutely love it. It's a sandbox game, which means you can take your own path, you can pick your own strategy of how you're going to make points in this game. You're trying to gain glory, and you can either be a merchant, bit boring, selling goods, picking them up from ports, selling them elsewhere, getting points that way, or you can be a marauding pirate, attacking either other players' ships or NPC naval ships that are sailing around the board. And every aspect of the game has thematic details that inform the gameplay. At the start, you have to decide whether you're going to have a flute ship or a sloop. A flute is better at being a merchant, it's got a bigger cargo hold, whereas a sloop is smaller and nippier. It's better for pirates to maneuver around other ships so they can win in combat. Then later you can upgrade to a frigate or a galleon, or if you're lucky, you can acquire it from an NPC naval character by attacking them and taking over their ship. Each ship has different strengths that you track on your board. You've got hull and cargo and masts and crew and cannons. And if you get into a fight and someone attacks you, you're going to lose hit points on those things, which might mean that you therefore have no cannons left, so you can't attack back. You've got a cargo hold where you can store goods and gold, and you can go into a port and pick up goods like cocoa and banana, and then take them to another island where that's the good in demand to get even more money if you sell it there. You can buy ship modifications such as hammocks to allow you to have more crew or long guns to do an early attack. Every decision you make is going to depend on which path you're going down. You might want to improve your cargo hold so you've got more space to keep goods. Or you might want to improve your guns so that you're better in attack. You might want to start the game as a merchant, make a bunch of money, and then use that money to buy an amazing pirate ship and then attack all the other players to get glory that way. The depth to this game is crazy. If you attack an English naval ship, then you have a bounty on your head from that country. And that means their naval ships are now going to hunt you out in the seas, so you're more likely to get into another fight with them. The combat is not just going to come down to the strength of your ship, but your specific captain's seamanship ability, which means you're going to get to roll more dice. If you choose to board a ship, then you're going to get into crew combat, which is where your captain's leadership ability comes into play. Does your crew have enough faith in their captain to fight for him and die for him? If you win crew combat, that's how you get to take over another player's ship and steal all their stuff. Whereas if you defeat them in naval combat, you're just going to sink their ship, losing all their gold and cargo to the sea. It tells incredible stories. There are mission cards that you can choose to pursue, or rumors where you hear that there's a ghost ship off the coast of Bridgetown, and if you go that way and succeed in your challenge, then you just win a ship out of nothing. The downside to that is there are a lot of rules to learn to cover every thematic facet of the game, but for me, it is totally worth it. I played this one a few months ago and was reminded how much I love it. I don't mind a heavy game if it's this interactive and it tells a different story every time you play it with the actions you take in the game. That's Merchants and Marauders. Those are my top 30 to 21 games of all time. If you'd like to buy any of them, there are links in the description below. And remember to subscribe if you want to see the next videos in this series. I'm John Perkis, thanks for watching.